Hello. It's episode
Hello.
5, our first feedback lockdown edition, the podcast where we bring a game each. And it's always better. We talk about what it is, and you get to vote on Twitter. I almost did a rap.
Yeah, nearly. I thought that was going somewhere, but
How
whatever.
you
Hi, Liz
doing?
McCurry.
Stone. Just living my life as a musical today.
So if you don't know, then we normally do this show whenever Liz and I host something together. We normally I say, hi, Liz McCurry. She says, hi, Will Goldstone. It's a lot more difficult on Zoom, especially when we're often talking over each other at the best of times, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm very good
So that's what just happened there. If anyone was confused as to what were they just saying? They seemed to say their own names, but it didn't make any sense.
So noisy on my street. People have no consideration for the fact we're doing a pod.
Brutal.
So yeah, it's episode 5. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. I've got nothing better to do, so you're welcome.
Just as a bit of an aside, before we went live, Will and I were just admiring each other's hair because we've been doing this no poo, like no shampoo thing. It's great for the old vol.
It is.
Great for the old vol. Check it out. We'll do a poll about whose hair's best as well. Anyway, William, are you first? Oh, my chair's first again.
I'm first. It's my turn to go first this week. One other thing. Who won last time? Or who's about to win? Is it you?
Yeah. And I'm telling you what, I love Dark Sector, but I didn't know you were bringing Quake, and I thought it was going to be I didn't think I was going to get a single vote this week. So I don't know if it's an unsung hero and like what I was saying about it deserving more of a cult classic status is a sentiment shared by many, or people just feel sorry for me. I don't know which one it is.
It's 1 at 2, isn't it? 1 at 2. So yes, Liz, I will go first. I'm gonna tease you with a few details. I'll try not to show it on camera by mistake. There we go.
It's busy. I don't want to get it in my eyes.
So Liz, I'm going to give you a year, and that year is 1997.
Final Fantasy 7.
It's not that. And I'm going to give you a tagline to kick things off.
Do it.
The tagline is, on a good day, only 2.5 million people will die. Okay. That's clue number 1. That's not worked out too well. The second clue, I don't really have a second clue. It's such a weird game, so I'm just going to tell you. It's MDK.
Mortal dying combat. Many dinosaur kings. Multiple dying cranks. Is that an angel on top?
No, that's Kurt Hectic. Liz, I'm very disappointed in you. But
have you made this up? Are you getting me back where you're like, Liz is bringing obscure things, I'm just going to make a game up?
I can't decide if MDK is obscure or not, really. Hang on, let me just focus you up there.
What does it mean? What does it stand for?
Well, that's kind of part of the fun of MDK.
On a good day, only 2.5 million people will die.
So let me talk to you about MDK. So MDK is a PC game from Shiny Entertainment. Shiny Entertainment were known for the Earthworm Jim series. So studio started by David Perry and a number of others. Did Earthworm Jim 1 and 2. And then they had sold the studio over to Interplay. And at that time, some kind of key people left. And they decided to make the leap to making a 3D game, which turned out to be MDK. Now, your first question was about the title. So MDK was marketed and initially prototyped as Murder, Death, Kill. So a very generic.
Oh, now I'm interested.
Just like kind of silly name. But in all of the print ads, they had sort of speculation as to what the MDK stood for. So it's great that you launched straight into exactly what they wanted you to do. So I
Yeah,
have
that's
this big
true.
box PC edition. It's got a little making of book in it, which is quite cool.
I enjoy that. I enjoy
It's
that.
got all the details, lots of
I
concept
wish
art in there.
I could hold this because that is a perfect example of a manual. Look at that.
It's not even the manual. I've got a manual as well. Don't worry about it.
So this is just like a companion making of art book.
This is a special edition which comes with the making of book.
Oh, love it.
So yeah, it's a really impressive title. So some kind of key people here who are kind of listed here. It's a team from various parts of the world.
In that they were all remote.
No, I think they're all based in California, but Nick Bruti was the creative director, and I think he came up with MDK as like the concept and the character concept. Sean Nelson's 3D artist, Tim Williams lead designer, Martin Brownlow is from Mansfield, Andy Estes from Scarsdale, New York, and Bob Stevenson was from Scotland. So yeah, it's a fairly small team. And so they basically wanted to move on from Earthworm Jim by making a 3D game. And initially, if you look at online, you can find prototypes of it being a side scroller.
Mm-hmm.
But this is actually a full 3D action game, third person game. So I'm going to send Liz now a clip that I'm going to put up on the edit of this.
It looks very colourful.
So this is the thing. The actual art style of MDK, and you can see from this, it's very H.R. Geiger, right? So all of the character, very sort of gothic. There's a lot of like all the alien designs and everything like that are very, very Geiger. So it's a lot of kind of like alien-inspired awesomeness. And it's a 3D third-person action game. So it's around the time when you had similar stuff, but only really been seen in like Tomb Raider, I guess, was another one I was playing at the time.
Yeah.
You could kind of say Mario 64 from the previous year as well. But this is coming out kind of hot on the heels of Quake that I did last week, and bringing a full 3D engine, but bringing motion capture for the character, which was a 2D sprite. So it's a bit weird. So in some parts of the game, it's a full 3D character, and you're kind of flying around, and you have this parachute thing, so you can kind of jump and launch the parachute and then float down.
It's like an exoskeleton.
Yeah, it's called the coil suit. The story is that you are Kurt Hectic, and Dr. Fluke Hawkins, which may be a barbed prod a guy called Trip Hawkins, who's another video game developer. Maybe that was a nasty jab at him, but maybe not. I might be creating a scandal where there isn't one. So Dr. Hawkins, Kurt, and Max, who is a 6-armed robot dog, have taken off from Earth in a spaceship. He's been ignored by the scientific community, and he's vowed only to come back when his scientific merit is recognized. And then all of a sudden, there's this alien invasion, and they've got these great big mining, like city-scale vehicles that are just driving across the Earth, crushing everything. And you basically have to land on them. So at the start of each level, you are parachuting down and avoiding this radar laser that's looking out for you. And then you kind of, after a few seconds, you parachute in. And then you're just spending the entire time on that level, going through all the aliens, going through these arenas, taking things out, firing weapons, doing all kinds of stuff, and using a kind of really interesting mix of dynamic weapons. So you've got this kind of chain gun thing, which is always there. Unlimited ammo always makes for a nice, fun 3D game, action game. But then the kind of really interesting thing about it, which you can see on the box here, is this sniper mechanic. So you could go into sniper mode.
I was just looking at that. I was just looking at that in the gameplay. It's really cool.
Yeah, you could go into sniper mode at any time, and you could zoom really, really far. So you could just like zoom all the way up to like a mile away and sort of snipe these aliens off a tower, which is what you do in the first level, in like the sort of demo training level. But they just used it really, really nicely, and it's full of like really goofy humor as well. It's like, it's not like, it looks like a really serious dark game, but it's not
Yeah,
at
it
all,
does.
because it's, because it's by people who made Earthworm Jim. So it's got this dumb edge to it, and all the aliens are just kind of goofing off and messing around all the time. And so yeah, there's just stupid humor throughout the whole game, which is kind of jarring, but is also kind of great, because I think if it took itself too seriously, it would get boring. But because all of the character animations are kind of silly and fun, you end up just feeling like, oh, it's just like, it's laughing at the fact that it's trying to make an alien invasion action game. And it's kind of like, it's very similar humor to like Men in Black, which was the same year. And I don't know if they came out around the same time, but like, yeah, it's definitely got that feel to it. And so, like I said, it's a 2D character, and they have in their making of book details of how they did the motion capture. And it's really cool. They've actually sort of sketched out the whole process, from like the suit to the SGI Silicon Graphics computer that they used, and then how they cleaned it up and stuff. And yeah, so basically they captured all this stuff, and then they tidied it up. And so you have this really fluid moving character. And they even explain how they captured it all at 48 frames, and they say the Alias software does not support anything more than 30 frames. And that's Alias, which was Alias Wavefront, and then became Maya, which is like a big standard in video game artwork these days. The other tagline they used a lot is on the CD, which says, "Prepare for a religious experience." So they just put all these like lofty, mad things into it, and I absolutely love it.
Did they say why they've done a 3D environment but the character is in 2D?
I think they just wanted the. Yeah, it's a bit of both. So there's a couple of sequences, like I said, where you are fully 3D, but you can tell that they couldn't get the detail into that or into the motion capture. So I think that's probably why. When you look at the sequences when you're sort of flying through this, there's a sequence, like there's a bunch of arenas effectively, and then you have sections connecting them, which are like loading tunnels where there's not a lot going on.
That's where I am, where you're kind of flying.
Yeah, and there's a part where you're flying through this tube and you're in full 3D, and you kind of don't notice it, and then you're like, oh wait, no, yeah, I'm in full 3D right now. But when you really pay attention, it's quite low poly. And if you think about like, Tomb Raider 1, Lara Croft was super, super low poly. Yeah. And of course, Super Mario 64 is a similar vibe. And I think they really just wanted like high quality for the protagonist. And they did a really nice job of it. The only thing that is jarring about that, playing it now, and I played a bunch of it at lunch today, and it was it has that problem where when you're maneuvering around a 3D environment, but you're jumping, a static plane that's playing graphics at you as the camera, it's really hard to judge depth when you're landing. And there's a lot of times where you have to land and pick something up, like they'll drop a power up onto a platform, and you're like, oh, I can't quite get to the right place. So, but it's, it's 1997. It's at that point where everything was sort of transitioning over, and, a lot of games had that same thing. Like the first Carmageddon had the same thing, where your car was 3D, but all of the enemy characters were still billboarded, or like Dark Forces we talked about the other week, where there were some elements in 3D, but then most of it's 2D. So it's really that really interesting time where people were saying, right, well, we want to make 3D games now because 3D is the thing. And it was the time when, 3D acceleration cards for PCs were about to come out. So 3D effects card, like the Voodoo series of those, and there's like a Power VR card. They were like the big competitors. So what was happening was, in 1995, Windows 95 came out, and then they start to set standards like DirectX for 3D. And then these cards would come out, and they'd have their own drivers, and it was like a kind of battle over who would win. And then eventually, things like NVIDIA and, all these other competitors would come along and establish like a reasonable standard for everything. But at this time, it was more of a Wild West. So the interesting thing about this one is that on the back, and the way that they developed it was to really play up to CPU 3D rendering, so actual software rendering as opposed to 3D accelerated. Support for those cards came later, but like what they say on the back is like, well, I'll read you the blurb and then you'll understand what's going on. So it says, on a good day, 2.5 million people will die as vast alien mining cities suck the power and minerals from every major metropolis on Earth simultaneously. Bit of a hassle.
God, they're busy, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Time is of the essence as millions of civilians are expiring by the second. Use your stealth parachute and the now infamous zooming head-mounted sniper weapon. Your task is to slip in undetected from the sky, seek out and remove the alien leader by any means. Driving your Pentium processor to its absolute limits, MDK gives you awesome super smooth 3D gameplay. Plus, with the most advanced weapons ever created in a video game, you can... I'm not sure if the copy has got it right here. It says you can take as in inverted commas, you can take out an alien's eye from 5 miles away, or just neatly carve your name in his forehead. So that's fun. So they were really kind of like, okay, these processes are the thing. This is going to be how we do it. And so there's a lot of there's actually locked, like you couldn't play it on older PCs if you didn't have a certain Pentium processor. But there's ways to play this now. You can get it on GOG.com. You can get it on Steam, I think. And there's a patch, and I was following a YouTube video in Italian this morning explaining how to patch it, and you can still play it. But it is, again, it's a product of its era because it has controls where you're running around with the arrow keys on the keyboard, and then you have Control key to shoot, Alt to jump, and you hold down X to then strafe. And it's just super weird to get used to.
Can you use it with a gamepad? Is always my question.
Yeah, I looked into it, and you have to find this other utility to rebind everything. And I'm like, I'm going to try and remember how to play it. And the other fun thing about this special edition is that it came with this rare letter from Interplay, which was where they provided, you'll recognize this as, of course, the save icon in most software. It's actually a floppy disk, Liz. And on it is a patch for this game, which was sent out in this letter with people. Do you know today where you hit update on your phone and it goes... In these days, 1997, we had to send you a letter and pop a little disc in the post to say, sorry, we made a mistake. Here's a patch for your game.
That's so cool. Oh, I'm always sad that that's not how it happens now.
Yeah.
So on the back of the box, it said that it had the most exciting weapons ever in a video game. Tell me about these weapons.
So there's a number of great weapons. So you've got the chain gun, which is attached to your arm at all times. There's no aiming. It's kind of like I mentioned Dark Forces the other day, where you're not really looking around. You're just firing in a vector forward, and you're just catching anything, in front or above at that point. So it's like easy aim, pretty much, and then you're just constantly firing. They drop hand grenades. They drop a number of different types of bullets for your sniper helmet thing.
I like the sniper helmet.
That's kind of what you're seeing on there. It's a really cool design. So most of the time the front is off, and that's attached to your arm as the chain gun. But then the idea is it attaches. I can't
distinguish which bit is man and which bit is
what device. On this picture?
Yeah, I'm just getting a zoomed in picture of it for my eyes.
Okay, I'm going to zoom in right here. Okay, now Liz.
I don't understand.
This is legs. Got his legs there. He's hopped up. That's the butt.
That's his bum.
That's his bum. That's his arm. And that's his head. He's got a helmet on. And that's... Oh, hello. And that's the gun. That's the sniper mode. And that's his other arm.
Oh, so that's on his head?
It's on his head.
Oh, and he's lying down like a sniper. I get it now.
Yeah. He's doing it's like a pastiche Bond kind of thing, I think. He's like it's weird. He's like a H.R. Geiger, Bond girl, alien head, something.
I'm down with it.
It's so unique. I absolutely love it. Did
they draw inspiration from Quake? The reason I asked that is because some of the levels in the gameplay were quite colourful, but the majority was that kind of colour palette that Quake is very well known for.
Yeah, so they do actually talk about it in the concepts. So in this concept book here, they actually say at the start, the early concept for the game began life as some sketches of 3D combat game, which moved away from the current norm of first-person perspective shooters such as Doom or Quake. It was decided very early on that this would be a project that not only exploited the capabilities of the PC to the full, but also brought some console-style gameplay into a more advanced environment. The early sketches not only included ideas for the 3D world, but also a number of enemy robots that would eventually make it into the final game. Early on, it was decided that gameplay would be divided into several styles: 3D combat, which makes up the bulk of gameplay, the free-fall sections that precede each level, and an early image, which shows a vehicle originally intended for Kurt to use. So there's like this motorbike
Oh, no
thing,
vehicles included.
No, it didn't make it in.
Oh, do
So
you know? I love
did not make it.
Love a good
But,
art book.
But yeah, so it's kind of like, so yeah, you can try and understand the weapon a bit better by looking at this thing. I'm going to focus like that.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
The idea is that then kind of attaches to your face and turns into a sniper gun.
I think it's cool. That was what caught my attention the most in the gameplay video, because I originally thought it was just a HUD where you reloaded. That's cool.
So that's you firing the sniper weapon attached to your head.
And then the fancy parachute on the bottom as well.
And the parachute. So yeah, and like the great thing about it, as in all kind of memorable games, you know, it feels great. Like it's really tight. The act of opening the parachute really kind of like locks the camera, and it floats down just really nicely. The other great thing is they handle like moving around in 3D really nicely. It doesn't feel dated when you play it, and they do just some really nice tricks with the camera. So when you're running around, because it's not a strafing game, and so if you're running to the right, basically the camera is tilting and you're kind of like turning to one side when you run around. And yeah, it works out really nicely. So I still really rate this game. I looked up a few extra things about it that I wanted to share with you. So obviously it's got a very unique style. It's got this kind of Geiger meets Dune, but then it's also got all of the wacky, shiny entertainment stuff, like this bizarre, colorful level that you can see here, which is kind of just super weird and cartoon. There's also this section where the aliens are trying to trick you into thinking you're in some other land. So they basically put up these 4 planes and they've just drawn like a cartoon, like hill and a tree and stuff. And you're like, what? And so you shoot them and they go and fall down, and you realize you're still in another one of their ships, kind of, or their mining vehicles. So yeah, Shiny Entertainment made this. Prior to that, they were a studio that were working on kind of IP games. So they were working on, they did if you remember the Aladdin game for the Mega Drive back in the day. So they did that for Virgin. And then they did Cool Spot as well.
Yeah, I remember Cool Spot.
The 7-Up tie-in. And they did...
I always thought he was this edible sweet. I didn't realise he was
the Doc from 7-Up. Yeah. And yeah, so they lost a few people after the Earthworm Jim games. There's a key guy called Doug Tenaple, I think it's pronounced. He's just a really great cartoonist. He went on to work on a game, what was it called? Oh yeah, The Neverhood. It's a really cool like claymation game from the late 90s. I think it was out in 99.
Cool.
So it's worth checking out. And he also did a really great graphic novel I read recently called Ghostopolis, which I recommend.
That's a cool name.
So they made MDK. It was kind of a big hit for them, really, and did really well for the studio. And then around that time, I'm trying to remember the exact lineage, because they went on to make a couple of other games which weren't as well received. A game called Wild 9, another one called RC Stuntcopter, and a game called Messiah, which was this like highly hyped game in around year 2000, I think it was.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it's the one with like the little cherub angel baby thing. Remember that? There was a port of MDK onto the PlayStation, but they didn't do it. It required quite a lot of changes, but they did quite a good job, but it wasn't quite as detailed as the PC one. A lot of texture scaling and things had to be done. But probably the most notable thing they went on to do as Shiny was the Enter the Matrix game, if you ever remember that.
Oh my gosh, the one for PlayStation 2?
Yeah.
I love
I remember it from the PC, but yeah. So I'm going to blow your mind with the lineage of what happened with Shiny Entertainment, and I'm going to get back into a Liz McCurry favorite. So strap in. So they sold to Interplay Games, and this is published by Interplay. So you saw the letter from Interplay earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was then turned into Atari Inc. Shortly after. And then around that time, they were making games under the Atari umbrella, and you'll see that Enter the Matrix is still under Atari Inc.
Mm-hmm.
So then at that point, I think in 2006, Dave Perry, who was the founder, he'd left the studio over some kind of creative disagreement. But then they were selling Shiny to a company called Foundation 9 Entertainment.
Okay.
So they moved Shiny out of the Atari umbrella into Foundation 9 Entertainment, into another group of studios called, into another building, with another studio they owned called The Collective.
Okay.
And they'd made the Men in Black game. Okay, so that's another bizarre, unrelated tie-in.
Yeah.
But the thing that you'll love is that Foundation 9 Entertainment merged Shiny and The Collective to create Double Helix games.
Who did Silent Hill Homecoming?
Who did Silent Hill Homecoming, a Liz McCurry favourite.
Hey,
So there is
that's
a direct lineage from Earthworm Jim to Silent Hill Homecoming.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
There you go.
Can we just do podcasts about that? Like what, 6 degrees?
6 degrees of studios?
Yeah.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
Liz,
What a small...
I love this game, and it led to one of your favourite games, so I thought it would be good to bring to your attention.
That's awesome. I was just kept expecting you to go, and then they were bought by Caviar Entertainment and made Beatdown.
We're back to the start.
We're back to the beginning.
So one other thing that you need to know is that Interplay had retained the MDK license, and MDK 2 was made by BioWare, who of course made famous for the Mass Effect series. So not as well received, but still quite fun. I had it on the Dreamcast, which is obviously this copy here. It was also out on the PlayStation 2.
Okay,
and
so late 90s.
It was interesting. You could play a little manual for you.
I love a manual.
You could play as Kurt, or you could play and in some sections you could play as Dr. Fluke Hawkins, and you could also play as Max the dog.
He looks really cute in the gameplay video. I enjoy him.
Yeah, it's quite cool. He sort of comes in and sort of grabs you as if he's on like a bungee of some kind. A bit like Gromit. Interesting.
Love Gromit.
Gromit. The bounce has gone from his bungee. Anyway, a little bit of Wallace for you. So yeah, MDK, a big favourite for me. Wanted to own the big box copy. Really happy I've got it now. Pick it up on GOG. There's a really easy way to patch it. Give it a go. That's me for this week, Liz. Vote for MDK.
What do you think that MDK stands for?
I'm frustrated that I can't remember all of the magazine like joke things for it. And I think, did I download some of these? I tried to find some on the web. Let me see if I found them. Yeah, all I could find was Mexicans don kilts.
Oh,
which was one of the pretend things. And the other one I found was an ad series that they said it has the MDK logo in the middle, and it says "It thinks, therefore it kills." So they clearly had a pretty broad marketing strategy of all kinds of random slogans and confusion. But yeah, I can remember at the time conversations in the playground and in and about PC magazines saying, what does it actually stand for? And people were fairly convinced that it was murder, death, kill. But I think the whole beauty of it is this enigmatic, weird product of its time, clearly made by people who love H.R. Geiger, Aliens, and those kind of movies, action movies, and it's fairly short. It's I think 6 levels, and it's just a really well realized vision from a team that I think were jumping into a very new medium and working on technology that would then go on, to be used for all kinds of things. So like, pioneering some aspects of motion capture and, actually building quite a solid 3D engine. A lot of the stuff is really impressive as well. They have like some levels where there's like mirrored floors and things where you're like, it's really jarring to play now because you're like, oh, you're just reflecting the skybox onto it. And it's like vomit inducing, but it looks really cool. And for 1997, it was just mind blowing. And it always felt fluid as well, because it's not one of those games where they were really pushing a lot of high texture detail, or at least they were taking advantage of how the PC worked at the time. So yeah, I think they just did an amazing job on it. And I can't recommend it more.
What's Kurt like? Because whenever I hear the name Kurt, I just imagine that they have the personality of Kurt Russell in Big Trouble in Little China. And they kind of speak like this. And I just really like it.
Don't call me Snake. No, he's meant to be a janitor. That's the joke, is that like he's the only guy who's available.
Why have you got that hat then? Is it
he's the only guy who's available on the ship, and they're like, oh, the aliens have invaded. We're going to put you in this untested prototype. It's always an untested prototype suit, isn't it? So yeah, they threw him into
always wanting to be saved.
Yeah. So Kurt doesn't have much of a personality in the game. There's the only thing that you really point to is that when you're sort of waiting, or when he's waiting, like Sonic taps his foot when you don't do anything for a while. He sort of, obviously you're in third person perspective, so usually it looks like this, facing the other way. But then occasionally he'll turn around and be like he'll just show the front of his head, and it's like a flat polygon with like, sort of a face rendered on it. So it's kind of comedic, but it's just funny because he's just like, yeah, come on, let's go. But otherwise not a lot of personality. It's all just the aesthetic, right? It's all just how he looks and how that plays out. And I think a very different studio would have done this in a way more serious way. Like I remember games a few years later, like did you ever play the Escape from Butcher Bay, the Vin Diesel?
Oh yeah, Riddick. Chronicles of Riddick.
Yeah, Riddick.
That was a good game.
Really good game. And didn't he start that studio to make the game? Famously?
Seriously?
Yeah, I think he was very involved in getting it made. But that's another one we can do another day. Liz, it's your turn.
Oh, is it my turn?
What about your video game?
So there was a few that I was going to do this week.
Okay.
But I could only pick one. And I realised this one isn't... Yeah, it is very me, actually. I'm just talking rubbish. It's very me. So are you ready for your clues?
Hit me.
Just consulting my note. So I would say that this game is Charlie Angels meets Clueless.
Sorry, who's Charlie Angels?
My good friend.
Your mate Charles Angels.
Yeah, Charlie's Angels meets Clueless. That's my first.
Oh, I know what that is. Do I? Is it No One Lives Forever?
No, that's such a good guess.
Okay.
If I was going to do any sort of celebrity comparison that I know always goes down well with you, I'd say that the intro, which I'm going to share with you shortly, is kind of just like you at a Holly Valance show.
Like in Taken, basically.
Yeah. And then my last clue, which is more of a proper clue, is that this was the last game that was released before Squaresoft merged and became Square Enix in 2003.
So wait, this game was in 2003, did you say?
Mm-hmm. It was released in 2003, just before the merge. Before the merge.
Angels meets Clue. Can you give me a genre?
It's a turn-based RPG.
I mean, I've got no chance if that's the case. Tetris. Is it Tetris?
It's a Tetris RPG. It is the 2003 PlayStation 2, but on the Switch now, Final Fantasy X-2.
What? 10-2?
This was the first sequel to a Final Fantasy game.
Really?
Yes.
Wait, hold on. Whoa, slow down. Final Fantasy, presumably followed up by Final Fantasy 2, no?
Yeah, but they're not direct sequels.
They're just different games.
They're totally different games, totally different characters, totally different story, totally different world.
I know nothing about Final Fantasy, clearly.
Every Final Fantasy is a different set of crew doing a different thing in a different world. There's like main themes. There's usually always a guy called Sid. There's always usually an airship.
Right. So what's the through line then? Is it just the style of gameplay, like evolving, working on the mechanics and things?
This is the beauty of Final Fantasy, and this is why everybody's favorite is a different one, and for so many different reasons, because the stories are always extremely different. And the characters, even though they have their tropes, like there's usually the happy-go-lucky one in the party, there's usually the leader, there's usually the quiet, stoic one. Even though there's always those character traits, the stories, the characters, and the world are always very different. And the battle mechanic, even though they are like turn-based RPGs until you kind of get to... Final Fantasy 15 changed that. That was a lot more kind of action-based, and then that evolved into Final Fantasy 7, which was a really nice mix of the two, where you had this mix of like the active time bar mechanic, where you had to wait for your abilities to use your abilities, but you had that direct action. So I'd say that the battle mechanic has evolved, but the thing in the ones that maybe was between the era that I played, which was PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, is that the active time battle and the way that the battles executed was the same, but the ways that you would level up your characters and unlock their skills was very different in different games. And the reason I love Final Fantasy X-2 is because the way that you unlock your skills for your characters is just by changing your outfit. Oh my goodness. I love it. Honestly, it's Charlie's Angels meets Clueless. So let me just show you. So if you're not a fan of RPGs, William, you might not know that in some RPGs, especially in the early Final Fantasies, you had like a class or a job. So you could be a black mage that specialized in offensive magic. You could be a white mage that was a healer. And you would have that class, and that is what you would have going through the game. And that would be the skill that you like built up and honed.
Yeah.
In Final Fantasy X-2, you could swap out your jobs whenever you wanted. And it meant that you always could be changing how you could always be changing your strategy to go into battle. So if there was a boss that you came up against, you could be like, okay, I need a black mage for this offensive, I need a healer, and I need someone who's a heavy hitter, need a big sword. So you could swap them out depending on your battle circumstance, but also how cool they looked. I will show. So this was the black mage outfit.
Quite difficult for them to balance each of the encounters, right?
It's the beauty of it. It's the beauty of it, William.
What, in the sense that it changes each time something happens and you have to adapt? Do you have to adapt? Is that the point? Like you're supposed to adapt?
If you have a character that you enjoy playing in that job, you can just keep them in that job for the whole game and just
build that job up to 100% and unlock everything. You don't have to keep changing, and that's the beauty of it. You can adapt the gameplay as much or as little as you like. And I just absolutely loved it. I loved that flexibility in it, but I also loved the fact that it had that aesthetic nature to it. Because I love a character creator. I love anything that you can like customize. There was, and so this whole concept that the way that you upgrade your character is by using dress spheres, which is effectively Clueless, was just amazing. So the one that I just showed you was the Black Mage, which is my favorite, which is it's all your offensive magic, so your elementals like fire, lightning, ice, that kind of thing. The other one that I really liked was the Gun Mage. This one was my favorite because if I was in Final Fantasy X-2, I would be a gun mage because I've always wanted to be a blue mage, and blue mages like inherit monster abilities. So these are your main girls, Charlie's Angels.
Okay.
So you've got Yuna and Riku, who were from Final Fantasy X and have carried over.
Okay.
I also love the limited edition front cover. The artwork of Final Fantasy is always amazing, but it's just incredible. And then you had a new girl called Pain, who,
Is it a continuation of a story between those two?
Now let me send you a video of the gameplay.
I can have a little cheeky watch while you regale us. So my question was also going to be like with 10, did 10 have the ability to swap out different?
No.
Okay.
10 had here I go. How long have we got? 10 had an incredible story. So I think this is why so many people wanted a continuation. So many fans wanted a continuation. But the way that you upgraded in 10 was you had something called a sphere grid. Okay. And so every time you got experience in battle, you were given a number of points that you could move around the grid and unlock abilities. So you had to get more points to unlock more powerful abilities, but the way that you evolved your characters and unlocked the strand that you took on the sphere grid was entirely up to you. And that concept was similar in Final Fantasy X-2, but it had this added element of dress spheres on top of it. So each dress sphere had a garment grid, and the garment grid is effectively the sphere system from 10. It was brilliant. So yes, so it was a direct continuation. Also loved the remaster front cover for the PlayStation 4. So spoiler alert, if you've not played 10, 10 has one of the best stories in any Final Fantasy. I think like 8, 10, and 15 are like up there as my favorite. And at the end of 10, your love interest Tidus, it turns out, so there's this religion called the Faith, and they're like these deities that have been asleep forever, and they like protect the world. It's been a while since I played it, so I might be getting it slightly wrong, but the whole concept of it is that Tidus is a dream of the Faith, and they're about to wake up and save the world. So when they wake up, he disappears. And so that's how the game ends. Tidus and your main girl, Yuna, fall in love. But then when the Faith wake up, Tidus disappears.
Oh, so he's a dream that everybody else is experiencing?
Yes.
Okay, that's quite cool.
Because and it's just brilliant. It's such a good story. There's so much more to it than Mercury regales.
But can fit into one podcast.
But yeah, so 10-2 is 2 years after, and Yuna is going to go save the world again, but she's heard some whispers that Tidus is alive somewhere and that they can bring him into the real world. So you have joined a team called the Spheregulls. Is that what they're called?
let me double check my notes. The wing gulls. And so you go around the world and you collect story spheres, which unlock the narrative. And the more that you find, the more is your percentage completion of the game and a better ending you get, because there's 5 endings. So that's the story in a nutshell. So yeah, Yuna's going to go to save the world with the gals and can like dress well and look sassy doing it, and also try and get a boyfriend back. It's great. I love it. It, like I said, it's like the Clueless and Charlie's Angels of Final Fantasy.
What is YRP?
YRP?
Because like they've just done a Charlie's Angels pose together. Like
so they get the pose,
and this is YRP.
It's Yuna, Riku, and Pain.
Oh right, okay. I should have spotted that. Yeah, it's right in front of me.
It's Yuna, Riku, and Pain. It's YRP. It's just.
It's great because this is it's basically. So what year was this? 2004. You said.
2003.
Oh, so this is kind of right in that pocket of like girl bands, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Child and all of that kind of thing.
Yes, exactly like Destiny's
the Charlie's Angels.
They have a psychic outfit in the remaster.
Nice.
I love it. Oh gosh, I just absolutely I loved the feeling of finding a sphere and it not being to do with the story, it being a new dress sphere. I just be like, yes, what can I wear now? So another thing that was really great about it was that the world of Final Fantasy X was very rich, very beautiful. It was the first Final Fantasy on PlayStation 2, actually. And so the whole graphical fidelity from 9 to 10, the richness of the world and what was capable on the hardware was just mind-blowing at the time. I remember having the official PlayStation magazine around the time of launch and looking at the FMVs and being like, yeah, you can kill me now because I'm never going to see better graphics than this. This is the pinnacle.
I love those moments in like gaming history where you're like, oh, it can't get any better than this.
Yeah.
How could it?
How could it get better than this? So you travel through Final Fantasy X, exploring the world, and then at the end, you've explored the world. So when you come back to 10.2, you're already in the airship with the whole world unlocked. So you're just like picking up where you left off and just finding out more about the world you've already been discovering. And again, that was a first for a Final Fantasy. It was really new.
So could you go back to things that were part of the story in 10? Or was it just the world matches?
The world matched, but also characters that you knew from the first game had their lives had evolved. So like 2 characters who would originally have been in your party in the first game had got together and had a baby. And so you could like go visit them in the tent.
Love that.
And like, yeah, it was great.
That's really like I can't think of other games that have done that where they've had, I mean, to be fair, I don't play a lot of RPGs and I didn't play, other broad RPGs like the Mass Effect series or anything like that. So I don't know, but that sounds fairly unique to have like an evolution of a story where you're like, oh, there's those people. Like when you see Dr. Alan Grant, he's back in Jurassic Park 3 or something.
But yeah, it was really, really very nice. And what was I going to tell you? I was going to tell you something.
Talk amongst yourselves whilst Liz.
Let me just go through my facts instead. I was going to tell you something really exciting, but I've just forgotten. So this game was positively received by critics and was commercially successful, selling over 5.4 million copies on the PlayStation 2. It was the last Final Fantasy game to be released by Square as they merged with Enix in April that year in 2000.
Were they, random question, were they Square or Squaresoft?
Squaresoft before, and then they became Square.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was like an interim where they were just Square. I know everyone calls them Square, but yeah.
So the other thing that was a bit strange about it is that Yuna, your main girl from 10, who I never really gelled with as a character, narrates this one. And so she'll run around and she'll be like, oh, brother, he's always so nice to me. And when we did this, we found this and it was amazing. And there's just something really charming about that I loved. But as I've got older and gone back and played it, it troubles me because she sounds so much like Laura Palmer from Twin Peaks, and it just makes me think she's hiding a crack addiction. Like, but,
wow.
So,
or slammed.
Pardon? I know, I love Una, bless her. So, let's go down the talent like I like to do.
Yeah.
So, Yoshinori Kitase was the producer, also the producer for Final Fantasy 15 and 8 masterpieces.
Oh, okay. So there's a clear through line to what you like and who made it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. Cool.
Daisuke Watanabe was the writer, also the writer for Dissidia, another great game. Noriko Matsuida was the composer for this, best known for her jazz fusion, which jazz is just one of my favorite genres anyway, but she also did the music for The Bouncer.
Oh, amazing. I really thought you were going to say
Beat Down. Yeah. Silent Hill Home. So the voice of the main girl, Riku, who is this one, the lovely blonde one. Where is she?
I think I've seen her in the playthrough. Yeah.
The voice actress is Tara Strong, and she was also the voice actress.
Why do I know that name?
Because she's been in so much cool stuff. So she was Bubbles in Powerpuff Girls. She was in Family Guy, Princess Mononoke. She's Paz from Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes. And Juliet in Lollipop Chainsaw, which might be another game that I cover.
Cool.
And what I haven't sent you, because I think you'll hate me forever, but I'm going to do now, is I'm going to send you the intro, which is basically a Holly Valance concert. So there was 2 vocal tracks for this game. And as with all Final Fantasies, the music is amazing. And they were sang by a lady called Jade Villalon, who was the lead singer of a band called Sweetbox. And she's also done music for Disney's Love and Fantasy collection, including A Whole New World. So she's a gem. And that just gives you an idea of the type of music that is in this game. Okay. The other interesting facts, I just love this game. So there were originally 2 spin-offs planned. Final Fantasy X-2, Final Fantasy X-3. One focusing on Yuna and her story, finding Tidus, and the other one focused on Riku, but they eventually just merged the storylines into this one single game.
So what did Riku set out to do then?
Don't know, Riku about. Maybe
so it's not like, Tidus, the other one's got to find her boyfriend who might be a dream but might be also real. This music video is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's just insane. I'll put a little bit over the top of the video right now, but
maybe start a swimwear line, because she always wears some great bikini kind of get-ups.
Right.
There was also meant to be a prequel that was focused on some major characters from the original that were like the old guard.
Final Fantasy 9?
Yeah. And also, Lulu was planned to be a third-party member who was a main character from 10, but they ended up giving her pregnancy instead.
Okay, different Lulu. I was thinking of the one that did the duet with Take That.
She might be in this. You never know. Check that music video. So because the writers felt that her personality didn't quite match the tone and the direction of the game, which is why they created this third character that wasn't in the others. The Jamie fact is...
Yes, Jamie facts. Okay.
The Jamie fact is, I don't have much to say about Final Fantasy X-2, except that it's probably the only game where a character can get changed mid-somersault.
That's probably 100% true. I can't think of another one.
So,
apart from Super Mario Brothers, of course.
Tell me.
Oh. Grab a power flower straight into your red overalls.
And at the beginning of the Devil May Cry reboot, where he flies through a caravan into his clothes.
Of course.
So your bad girl in this is LeBlanc,
LeBlanc.
and she calls everyone love, so I just assume she's northern, so I really like her.
I'll do.
You're
It's me,
pet.
LeBlanc.
And the other thing is, before I read the back of the box, which I'll do as a sign off, is that there's 5 endings.
Cool.
Based on your percentage completion of the game, and like if you've done certain quests.
Okay.
And I got the bad ending once, and the bad ending is just a cutscene of the world exploding.
What, like a whole planet kind of thing? Or?
No, like the I can't remember what city you end in where the end boss is, but just like that whole city crumbling, and I'm just like, oh, it's actually quite like, I remember being like, oh, wow, okay. I wasn't expecting that. But the good ending is that you find, well, the perfect ending is that you find your man Titus, which is nice. But there's this really weird kind of...
was it worth it? Was he a nice guy? Did he do the dishes? What was he like?
I love a bit of I love a romance story. But there's this really weird thing in it that if you get the good ending, if I'm remembering this right, I might be talking bobbins.
True.
You are having a chat to one of the Faith who's woken up. And he says, like, do you really want to see Titus? And you can say, like, no. You can be like, no, actually, am I right as a strong, independent woman? I don't need my man. I've got 50 dress spheres. I'm fine. And so then Yuna just kind of goes, no, I'm all right, thanks. I have him in my heart, and that's enough. And which I just thought, was actually pretty cool. But if you say, yeah, I really want to see him, then you get reunited with him, and it's really nice. That's the ending I had, obviously. So I'm going to read the back of the box, and then that's my Final Fantasy X-2. And this is the back of the box with Yuna.
Okay. This time, it's personal.
This time, it's personal. Last time she saved the world, which she did, to be fair. She whinged a lot about it, but she did it. But this time, it's personal.
Do you mean whinged?
Oh, she whinged. Oh, she really whinged about it. She whinged so much about it that there was this... It's quite an iconic scene of Final Fantasy X where Tidus forces her to fake laugh. And it's just the two of them for what feels about 15 minutes going...
I think you've told me about this before. You've told me about a fake laugh.
Of Final Fantasy.
You probably shouldn't laugh anymore.
Yuna's story continues in the first true sequel of the Final Fantasy series. New dangers threaten Spira, that's the world. Familiar allies are at hand, and somewhere, somehow, a friend may still be alive. Friend. Change jobs in the heat of battle. Just get changed. Just get pumped. Enter an exciting mission-based story with non-linear gameplay and experience dynamic combat, suggestive themes and violence. One player, vibration function. Final Fantasy X-2. Get your Charlie's Angels on and your Valance hits and choose Final Fantasy X-2.
Well, Liz, I'm glad you like 10-2, but it's 20 past, and people need to decide whether they're going to pick murder, death, and killing, or Charlie Angels and his missing boyfriend.
Charlie's Angel and her missing boyfriend. Charlie Angel. Look at him. Don't you just want a gang
They are
like
pretty cool.
this?
They are pretty cool.
Love it. Love it. So that's I thought I'd step away a little bit from my usual horror and obscurity and
into
Go with a bit of a J-pop extravaganza.
Yeah. Well, I
Did
lost
you like
last
the
week.
intro?
Not massively confident about this week either, to be honest. Yeah, I enjoyed the intro. I'll be putting bits of that into the edit, so people would have already seen that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed MDK Final Fantasy X-2, and I hope you're all doing very well in the lockdown. And we'll be here next week with more video games.
Don't wash your hair.
And my camera's just decided that it's enough, and it's all over. So here is me in generic cam, which doesn't look as good. But there you go. So Liz, don't wash your hair.
Don't wash your
See you
hair.
next week. You're going to be wondering why the hell we're not washing our hair, or what it's all about. Scrimping on shampoo for some reason.
I mean, my head feels horrible, but my hair looks great.
Yeah. I mean,
My
that's what
fringe is
counts, right?
still kind of knocking about. Anyway.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Looked at the wrong camera as well. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Liz.
Do I look at Mike like that or like that? I do look like that or like that? Like
Number
that or like that?
You're not an optician. Stop it.